has, through a memorandum sent to the state of Hawaii's judiciary, identifying Hawaii's occupation and war zone. This announcement is being made by the commander of Occupied Forces Hawaii Army.
Sir, aloha.
Yeah, I was at the White House when Joe Biden, when she came, I was yelling bloody murder.
Well, I have a little project going on over here. Kaveh is reading the instructions and the attitude is putting it together.
I just gave her some banana. I should have asked
thank
if she
you.
eat banana.
No, yeah.
But she not eat that much, though, sis.
No, yeah, I was giving him papaya. So, right here, we got a land marker to verify that the Hawaiian Islands and the territory that the Hawaiian Islands consist of has been within a state of war since the occupation by the U.S. has begun on January 16th, 1893, when they had commanded the U.S. Navy to land their troops in front of the palace. So this was put in 1948 before the state was created, so that they could have a physical land marker to identify that this territory has been in a state of war since 1893. So we've been under occupation for 128 years here in the Hawaiian Islands because of the false pretense that American lives were in danger. So what happened was, according to the James Blount report, which was done in the 1800s, between 1893 to 1895, James Blount is recorded in his report saying that this is a strange form of occupation, because no matter what, occupation is not an illegal thing. It cannot be illegal because two countries have the right to occupy, and if they believe that they should cause war with another country, then they are allowed to occupy. So the reason why they occupied was because there was a committee known as the Committee of 13, also the Committee of Safety. And the Committee of Safety, they were part of the Queen Liliuokalani's cabinet, and they had served as administrators in her cabinet to facilitate the laws being put out during the reign of the monarchs. And what happened was, those men were a part of the cabinet when her brother Kalakaua, her predecessor, when he was during his reign, he had traveled a lot around the world, and we were always open to having anybody a part of our country, because many foreigners who are missionaries, doctors, law, experiences within the law, they had come to our country and wanted to be a part of our administration and our government. And so because of their help with creating our governance, we were always open to having anybody we made a relationship with to come in. And unfortunately, at that point, it had been sort of our downfall, because some of them had other interests with wanting to help. And so what happened was, they had held a bayonet to Kalakaua's head, and we recognized that constitution in 1887, the Hawaiian Kingdom's constitution, as the bayonet constitution, because of how they had held that gun to Kalakaua's head and forced him to give them Pearl Harbor so that they could open the tariffs on their sugarcane and have their ports to come in and out with their goods to sell here in our markets. And because of that corruption, looking for money, they were exposing our monarchy to the corruption that the rest of the world had already been taking part in. And so by the time Lili'u's reign comes around, there's already an infiltration within the government, Every member of her cabinet later became the Republic of Hawaii and quote-unquote overthrew the Queen. However, if you look at the history dates, what happened was that committee had pulled their strings and called John L. Stevens, who was the Prime Minister at the time, and had John L. Stevens call the Navy so that they could land the troops, because that cabinet was aware that Liliuokalani had wrote a new constitution, and the provisions she made on those constitution, the revisions she made included a better life for every Hawaiian national, no matter what your race, creed, religion was, wherever you came from. Once you became a Hawaiian national, you were going to be under those set of laws in her new constitution that she wanted to announce on January 16th on the balcony of Iolani Palace. And so because her cabinet knew that she was going to change the rules and change the way that they could interact with our ports, bringing in their sugars and who knows what else. She had basically been, you know, they used the word treason, right? What happened was that cabinet had committed treason to their sovereign monarch, who is Liliuokalani. And so the propaganda they have put out is that they overthrew the Queen. However, if you look at the dates and the records, on January 16th, the occupation had commenced in 1893, and then the following day, on January 17th, they will tell the Hawaiians and all of the people that it was an overthrow, but it wasn't. What happened was from then to 1895, the Queen had worked very hard to submit her letter to the US and clarify that she was lawfully yielding her authority so that it could be reinstated to her as a sovereign monarch by the US, so that the proper protocols would be taken to facilitate a de-occupation. But what happened was propaganda was put out. She was imprisoned inside of her palace, and there were little to no connection with her people and her subjects. And she, unfortunately, she was run down by the media. They painted her as a monkey. They said that women weren't capable and made Americans sway to look at her in a different lens, the way that instead of the way our people had seen her. And so since that occupation has started during the reign of Liliuokalani, we have yet to see them return our authority to the proper Council of Chiefs and to include the right facts in the history. And so what they do is they'll put it under our noses in this form, where we have physical markers of the territory we are in and the state of war that this territory has been in and under since the occupation has begun. And it's up to us to come together and share knowledge once again the way that our kupuna did, because otherwise we will keep people in the dark, and it is a crucial time to start piercing the illusions that they have created for us to pay attention to while they have swept stuff from right under our feet, right? So part of this right next to the water is very important, because the maritime law is based in God's law, and that's why with the ports and whatnot, with the ports being our access to this country, that is the same reason why we made our flags. The Hawaiian flags were created to show the 4 different countries that had began relationships with us. You can see the British Union Jack, a Russian flag, a French flag, as well as the stripes representing the United States of America, so that we would clarify in the ports that we'd enter in Asia or wherever else a Hawaiian ended up that we belong to this certain country, because the maritime law was where it began. And so that's why they have it here next to the water. And it's important that we go back to learning those types of laws, because all of the laws that the Hawaiian nation stood under was the laws that we understood as God's laws, and that is the right to travel, God's creation. That is why we have nothing to do with driving or nothing commercial, because we are traveling the creation that the Creator has given to all of His children, whether you're from someplace else or from here. You have the right to see God's creation, and that is what that law is based off of. So this plaque, this landmarker, this pin was put in by the Army Corps of Engineers to clarify that this physical territory that we are in is under different jurisdiction than theirs. The only jurisdiction they have is over the military personnel, who are the only personnel permitted here in an occupation due to the state of war. So because of the state of war, the American citizens are actually enemies because of how it's war to the Hawaiian citizens and subjects. However, right now there is no Hawaiian government to mark who is a Hawaiian. There are only the volunteers who are trying to remedy what has been going down. And right now those volunteers serve as the Hawaii Army, Occupied Forces, Hawaii Army. And the purpose of this military is to commence the de-occupation of the Hawaiian territory so that we can form our government again and show the world once again how the Hawaiian people choose to operate and govern themselves, which is in a state known as pono. And pono is a balance, pono is a righteous outcome that we're looking to reinstate into these islands and the mana that belongs here, because we cannot do it without being pono, and that's one thing that we're focused on in our daily lives. And so until the deoccupation of the United States of America in Hawaii and the demilitarization of our nation commences, the Hawaii's army will be present. And then after the deoccupation and a treaty of peace with the United States of America is instated, we will begin to facilitate all of our people into government positions in the schools, in the hospitals, as well as in the government itself, so that we can begin to create the real Hawaii again, the Hawaii that we all know and remember and cherish in our heart. Mahalo nui.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, inhabitants in Hawaii. This is a military broadcast for information regarding your status and the country's status through a memorandum of error and truth in fact by Occupied Forces Hawaii Army. This is dated 21 December 2021. It's to all inhabitants in Hawaii. It's from the commander, Colonel Lilikoi, that's myself, OFH Army, Civil Affairs, Military Government, and Judge Advocate General. Regarding memorandum of error and truth necessitated by the state of Hawaii's status as an illegitimate insurgency, and to establish a declaring statement by the Occupied Forces Hawaii Army regarding the current state of war in this country, Hawaii. In truth, we the people in Hawaii are under martial law and in a state of war. The following memorandum of error and truth states the errors in fact upheld through the facade created by the state of Hawaii and an illegitimate descendant of an insurgency continues to capture of the Kingdom of Hawaii's government in the country of Hawaii. The people in Hawaii have been made to choose between a forced, convenient, false history for its stateless citizen benefits over a truthful, evidenced, and factual one, where the people voluntarily bound their place in the country and the soul to Hawaii under EO, God. In truth, this document publishes for all a clearly stated declaration of the current state of war in the country of Hawaii, the laws and science by which to end the current state of war in said country, and means by which to ensure an ushering in of a time of peace. It is therefore necessary to continue through the jus post bellum phase to reach a peace treaty, engage in military tribunals, and other necessary phases to end the state of war and rebuild the country of Hawaii.
Attention, attention! You are in a state of war. This is an active war zone. United States of America, through its Navy, and Hawaii, through its Army, has signed a state of declaration of war. In this war zone, who are civilians, are ordered to check in with the United States State Department or United States Navy, JAG, and seek protection for your safety. Be advised, all personnel who are not residents of the state of Hawaii or not a part of the United States military are ordered to evacuate the country immediately. If you have firearms in this country, you need to surrender it to Honolulu Police Department or United States Navy. Also, be advised that the declaration of state of war has been delivered to the Department Land and Natural Resources, which is to Edward Underwood. Edward Underwood has received this documentation, and he, Edward Underwood, is an officer and has received this documentation. Be advised, the United Nations has, through a memorandum sent to the state of Hawaii judiciary, identifying Hawaii's occupation and war zone. This announcement is being made by the commander of Occupied Forces Hawaii Army. In the theater of this war, the Second Amendment rights does not apply in this war zone.
You can serve your country and serve your people instead of an insurgency. Join the HPV. That's what you guys gotta do.
The United States of America,
We're here to just deliver that stuff. That's all we're here to do.
If you guys grab that envelope and put them back in your truck, I'll pull these guys out.
No, you can put them on it, but that's what we're told to do. If we not, we're not gonna
I don't agree with you guys. Yeah, I believe in the country. I don't believe in the state. I don't care. I'm fighting for my country. You guys serving for a
But
commercial
you know what?
economy.
At least I know we understand. I know we understand. With all respect,
And
right?
you know what? It's due respect.
No, that's all.
Due respect, right? And it's no, I apologize. But we gotta do what we gotta do. Because you guys gotta
I
do
hear you.
and we ain't stopping. Because we're gonna win this. Now that we got them in the bag, we ain't stopping. We're disarming them all. You know why?